Hey Martin, how are you doing?
Hi, Adam. I'm doing quite well, thank you. What about you?
Perfect. What I'm thinking is, of course, so I try to find out, but I have no idea about your first computer. So, what was your first computer?
Well, this is quite a hard question for me because I grew up in quite a small town in Slovakia, where technology is always a few years behind. So I consider my first computer only when I got to university, which was already Lenovo Y510P, if I remember correctly, which was in 2013. So it's quite not so old.
It was already Pentium or better, right?
That was already fourth generation i7 as well,
Wow.
2.4 gigahertz.
And what you did before?
Before that, I basically only had one computer at home,
Hmm.
and I had three brothers. So we
Hmm.
need to share one computer with 1 hour slots.
Hmm.
And you understand that that was mostly games and not so much coding.
Okay. But what was it?
I really don't remember, but that was around 2008 when we got our first computer, I think, at home, and that was definitely Pentium Plus.
Okay. So you are the young, dynamic Java developer here, right?
You can say that.
Yeah, but with your bird, you look really old. So I thought, you have 60 years of Java experience, and you are actually 17 years old, right?
Not 17, but
Exaggerating as always.
this is quite, like professional look. This
Ah,
is
okay.
my intention to look older.
Yeah, to see a professional look, you look like kernel hacker.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
that's
good.
exactly the idea.
Okay, so when you start coding, or also you play a lot with your brothers. Now the question is how and why you wrote the first line of code.
When I got to high school, this is the first time that I actually learned about coding. And at the first sight, I was already interested in like that you can actually type words into computer and computer does something for you.
Mhm.
So I got really interested in IT in general. And basically, once I saw what you can do with this kind of technologies, because I got one friend who was a real hacker, and he somehow wrote a program that played the song on a CD-ROM drive.
Ah,
I
okay. Hmm.
remember. And that was my breaking point that this is what I want to do.
Ah, okay. So now you're writing programs to for CD-ROMs, right? To play sounds with Quarkus.
Well, I no longer have CD-ROM for like, I don't know, like 10 years. So
Hmm.
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, you could specialize no Blu-ray players as well. So there are some still around. Okay, cool. So what was your first line of code?
That was Turbo Pascal at high school and basically some Hello World.
School assignment, right?
Yeah.
And what was the first line you wrote? Because you wanted to. So outside school.
Outside school, when I first, because my interest, why I pursue IT was because I wanted to write games originally.
Hmm.
That's why I went to university. So my first, actually, my own development was trying to write some games.
Okay. Yeah. In which programming language? Turbo Pascal still.
Actually, Java.
Oh,
My,
so you
my
started Java to write games.
yeah, I managed to create only two games.
Hmm.
Then I already started working with like enterprise Java.
Uh-huh.
And one was in OpenGL, and the second one was like a real game in Unity. So that was C or C++. I don't remember.
Yeah, and this OpenGL is still around in your GitHub account somewhere?
Whew, that's a good question. Probably not, because back then I don't think that I had GitHub.
Okay.
But I
But you
probably
should do
could
this, right?
dig it up. I could probably dig it up somewhere in my like old backups.
Yeah, maybe it works, right? It will be actually fun. Who knows what happens?
Yeah, maybe if I will have some time, I will try.
So what was the game about? So if I know, so look at you. I suppose it's something like gardening, and bio, and is it true?
Why gardening?
I don't know. This was just a joke. I think it's a point and shoot, right?
No, that was like a paper plane,
Ah,
which you could control, and
uh-huh.
you were like passing through some rings and getting points for that.
That's interesting, actually. Cool. And it worked?
Yeah, it worked. That was actually fun to develop.
Yeah, you have to publish it. I think it'll be fun on
I
GitHub at least.
Oh, I probably forgot because I think at high school I also wrote one other game which was in Swift, I think.
In Swift?
Yes, because back then we only got an assignment like do something for a year and nobody will teach you like anything. So you needed to do something from scratch.
Swift on Apple.
I think so. Or Swing? No, sorry. Yeah, Swift. Yeah, it was Swift, I think. My memory is really bad for that period of time because that was too long ago for me. But I remember that it was like only some like like stationary shooting game where you had like waves of enemies and you need to.
So was it in Java, right?
No, not in Java. I started with Java only at the university actually.
Because Swift is not that old, so maybe it was Objective C.
I would need to dig it up, but yeah, that was a long time ago, and that was at the time when I didn't really take any interest in actual languages. I only needed to get the job done.
Okay.
So it was a lot of Stack Overflow and Googling to put it together, but it worked.
So okay, the OpenGL paper plane game, in which Java you used back then? I suppose Java 1.5 already or something like this, right?
No, I started with 1.6 or 1.7 actually.
Okay, so Gerrit Grunwald was the youngest of all of us. So he started with JDK 1.4, and now you are even younger. So 1.5 and 1.6. So you are the newcomer, Java newcomer.
I actually try to listen to Airhacks when I have time from time to time, and I listened to Brian Benz that you did a few weeks ago, and you were like half an hour into your podcast when he got into the year when I was born.
Ah, okay. So you didn't listen to James Gosling podcast because I think 1 hour before we all were born, right? So this was okay. Okay, Java 1.5, 1.6, you had already annotations, right? So this was you are in the lucky situation that you had more than Java. And okay, so what happened with the game? So why you stopped developing this, or what? So what happened?
So basically, I was in my second year at the university when I was already getting like a second intermediate course on Java. We had like 3 levels, like basic, intermediate, and then enterprise Java course. And in that intermediate Java course, I met one guy from Red Hat, Jiří Holuša, who was really enthusiastic about Red Hat, and I somehow got interested. So I asked if it makes sense to try to get into Red Hat when you are second year at the university. He told me why not, and I ended up in JBoss EAP, Enterprise Application Platform team, where I'm still to this day.
And this is where stopped developing the game, right?
This is where I found out that software is way bigger than just games, and what you can achieve when you will not just do games.
Okay, so since you're in university, you worked for Red Hat.
Yes, basically still the still same team, still same position from my second year of university.
Interesting. So what interests me is so you try to write a game, and then you are confronted with enterprise Java. I mean, was it a shock, or you like it, or what? I mean, this was interesting, experiment. To show game developer enterprise Java and see now and be enthusiastic about it, right?
I wouldn't consider myself game developer like.
No, but you might. This was your first experience with game development. I mean, you were a game developer somehow because you develop a game, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. If you define it like this, then yes.
This is my definition. So this is
basically yes. That was quite a shock because I was actually the first intern in this like whole JBoss team, and they really didn't know how to approach me. So basically, the first 3 months, I really read the whole Java EE7, like every specification.
Wow.
And I didn't understand like nothing. It was they didn't know what I should do, so I really went through everything. Then I started working on some smaller projects utilizing Java EE, and I found out that it's quite not. I wouldn't say easy, but it's quite fast learning curve because there is a lot of materials about Java on Java EE back then. So I was really fast and productive, and I grew really fast, and in 5 months I was already an employee.
That's interesting. So, this is also my experience, but this is not widely spread. That Java is easy to learn and is you can be very productive. But for me, is so I consider even this almost like a secret weapon. If you know it, you just go for it, and it works, and you don't talk about that. So this is like okay.
Exactly.
Which year was it?
2015.
Okay. And was it where was it? You worked for Red Hat US, or was it in?
No. I'm based in Brno, Czech Republic, and we have Red Hat has the biggest engineering office here. So this is where I'm actually right now.
I didn't know about that. So the JBoss ERP team is in Brno.
Not really. Like most of the teams, not only middleware, are distributed around the world, but like most engineers are situated here. But it's not only like middleware or Java, but we have also Keycloak, like one floor down from me. But we also have RHEL engineers, or I don't know, OpenShift, everything. Basically, there are engineers around the world, but generally Czech Republic is concentrated here. And we have here in Czech Republic around more than 1,000 people, mostly engineering.
So, okay. I was several times in Brno, but never. Also, I drove by because there was an info share, and I was in Katowice, and I worked, I think, Ostrava and Brno, and there was always traffic jam. There was something with I remember because there was a problem with the airport. There was some, road construction with the airport, and I had to go through the city. But what surprised me is there were really, I think Oracle's even there, right? It wasn't a tall building with Oracle sign on it. So I was really surprised. It looked for me like, software development area. So almost, lots of signs with software development companies. This was my recollection of Brno as I drove by. It was last year or this year.
Actually, many people consider it like a Silicon Valley of at least Central Europe, if not all Europe. Many big companies come here because I would like to say many good IT universities. So really, I see this that like Brno is becoming like a really engaging IT city.
Okay, cool to know. And okay, so you wrote the Java 7 spec. You wrote, the some sample applications, right? Or what? Yeah.
That was like a tooling applications that supported, because I got into the EAP maintenance team. So that means like supporting subscription on like paid customers. And I wrote several like small tooling applications that help with the process. Like some like merging or connecting stuff from Jira to GitHub and like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, cool. And you deploy that on Whitefly?
Back then, yes, it was mostly Whitefly.
Okay, so what you did then? So you wrote, the like process supporting apps. What happened then? So what you did from then until now?
When I moved to like normal associate position, that was still only part time because I was still basically finishing my bachelor thesis back then. And I started working like on normal maintenance tasks that we are doing. So releasing every 6 weeks on EAP, we release so-called cumulative patch, which is a bunch of bug fixes that we deliver to customers. So that was my primary focus. That also came with a lot of experience because that individual bugs in EAP allowed me to touch so many different parts, because EAP is enormous project and very diverse. So if you fix something in Hibernate versus in REST Easy or in Velt, or I don't remember, we even had like Web Console, which was in Google Web Toolkit. That was so like diverse. Every time that I picked something, I needed to learn something new, which was really interesting. So I really grew really fast on this because it was really interesting work for me.
Yeah, sure. Google Web Toolkit, and not even Google Web Toolkit. What they had is in JBoss, they had like the remote procedure protocol on Google Web Toolkit. I forgot what it was. You know the name? Well, cool name.
HAL, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So it was this, and lots of interesting. I use JBoss and Whitefly a lot, and I was also surprised by the innovation there. And Okay, so so you're basically patching Whitefly, right? This was your main job.
Well, EAP, but yeah, basically.
Yeah, AIP. AIP is Enterprise Application Platform, and this is Whitefly supported Whitefly, which is the upstream project, right?
Yes.
Of Whitefly.
Well, everything that we put into EAP needs to also go into Wi-Fi,
Mhm.
but like main focus was on EAP, and that allowed me to grow even more. So in like 5 years since I started, I was already senior,
Mhm.
and
Because of your birth, right?
probably helped.
Yeah, what do you
But
mean senior? It means you have to. I mean, I have no idea. I never worked for a company. So if you become senior, you have to do. I mean, what does it mean?
from my perspective, it only means that you take on more responsibility. We have like a table of responsibilities for every position, but like
Ah, okay.
from intern is not an associate. Intern is just like like 1 year contract, which
Hmm.
is like you are doing some easy task. When you are associate software engineer, that's like a junior position. Then
Okay.
we have middle level, which is software engineer, and on top of that, senior software engineer, which is like gradual taking on more and more responsibilities. Probably more.
Responsibilities means you can maintain bigger projects, or what does responsibility mean?
Yes, maintaining of some projects, also organization of that of release process, like release coordination of that CP
Ah,
release
okay.
and
So it
release
means you
coordination.
become senior, so you get different tasks. So if
Yes,
okay, so this makes sense.
you move more from like plain bug fix from bug fix, which was
Hmm.
my day to day as a junior, to more like organizational level maintenance uh, of like whole projects. So I got then back then already a few projects that were like my responsibilities that I needed to or I had the responsibility for to become so-called subject matter expert in this particular area. And back then, I already started with MicroProfile, which also helped
Hmm.
because I am kind of main person because we don't have specification leads, but I took over MicroProfile Health.
Very
Uh,
good.
so that's my main responsibility in MicroProfile.
Hmm.
And oh, go ahead.
This means for me as a senior, it means it's similar to committer in open source project, right? So you could become committer, so you have more responsibility of the project. Only in Red Hat, you would be able to release. So for me, it's similar to commit. This is actually a big deal. It's not something on paper. It's just associated somehow with the tasks and
Yes.
you power a little bit, right? So you can destroy more, right? As an
Yes.
intern, you cannot delete a project. As an senior, you could, right? It would be a bad idea, but you have more responsibilities, more power, and it's similar to commit in open source project, right?
I'm smiling because last week we managed, or like one very senior person, I won't name him, managed to delete Arcelian core repository, but it's
Okay.
successfully restored by now.
Oh, okay. So, okay. So this means if you are senior, you can do something for fun like this. It's like a chaos monkey, right? So this is applied, and okay. Is it something higher than senior?
Yeah. Again, in 2 years from senior, I became already principal
Oh,
software
well, what
engineer.
does principal mean? I know it just for
Again,
Java
it's
EE.
just another
Now you
level.
are injectable. Now I can inject principles and ask you for a name in my project, right? So I can say at principal get, and then it will be Martin.
Yeah. Basically, I also like the similarity to like the lead person inside circus is also called principal, which
Ah,
people
okay.
make fun of me. But yeah, it's just the name of the position in Red Hat. Like
So there are no different tasks. It's just this appreciation that you didn't delete it Archillian. So now you are now you became then principal. If you do nothing wrong after 2 years, you become principal, right? So or how it works. I have
uh,
really no idea. I'm just asking because I'm
yeah.
always interested in all the titles.
Well, basically, for me, it was really gradual because I like to take on responsibilities on my own. I never was like, you need to do this to get to the next level. I was already doing that
Hmm.
when they catch up and promoted me to the next level.
Hmm.
So when I was becoming principal, I was already going on several bigger conferences, which is not typical for an engineer to
Hmm.
like do public conferences. Also, I started my local Java user group here in Brno, which I currently lead. I am still writing, now finishing a book for modding called
Yeah,
Quarkus
what's
in
the title of the book?
Quarkus in Action.
Okay.
So I was already doing quite a few tasks,
Mm-hmm.
which most people here don't. So this is why I was able
Yeah,
to
but
get.
it could be good or bad, right? So if Red Hat is interested in such things, it's good. But if they say, okay, it's waste of time, then you will stick with this senior forever, right? So this is always the question whether it is appreciated or not.
Exactly, but because I'm already part of this space and I see like what other successful engineers are doing to
Mm-hmm.
get promoted, like I can repeat the same basically, and it's not so hard to basically uh, get started with this kind of basically interest because nobody here, at least around me, was not doing it before. Like for
Mm-hmm.
instance, the Beno Java user group,
Mm-hmm.
it was really dead since 2013 when I took it over last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I really branded this as Java user group, and now we have talks every month
Mm-hmm.
except summer, and yeah, that helps
Yeah.
because they see that you are doing something for the community,
Yeah.
which
Cool.
Red appreciates.
Yeah. So I will also one day come to you, to
I
speak.
definitely would like to
Yeah.
have you at my job.
Very good. So Jack's Java user groups are great, and this is what I like the most. Is you don't have to prepare a lot. It's all mostly fun, and you can talk about a topic and get feedback. This is what I'm doing this. Why I'm asking so much about the seniors and principals, because I had a funny story. I still remember it. It was a long time ago, but I was basically ignored in all meetings by a large company, and I had no idea why. And then it turned out, I think the company, I think it's no more around. It was Undersea Consulting or something like this. I think it is no more around. And then I asked someone. They were also nice people, right? So why I get ignored? It's like, because you are not a senior, and I think it was senior. And so I was always a freelancer, and I can print my own business cards. So then I wrote the next day, I printed my business card and I wrote something like senior architect or enterprise senior architect or something. And then, because I never gave them the business card, and then I was the chief, right? So they didn't ignore me, and I was highly appreciated. So this is why I'm asking you, because this was my hack back then. And then I told them the story that actually the next time, if you need even more interactions, I could actually print a different card, but I didn't know what's the next level is. But now I would print principal chief Java architect, and it would be even better, I guess. So this is what happened.
There is
This is
also
a real
senior
story,
principal.
actually. Uh-huh.
There is also senior principal as next position.
Okay, good that you're saying this. So the next time, I will always, call myself now senior principal architect. This is the best one, right?
Actually, like
Or even on that note, what also surprised me, back then in Java, there was just architect and enterprise architect. And starting in 3 years, everyone became a solution architect. So I asked the question, so why we have now the solution architect? Because, I mean, every architect should be interested in solutions. So if there is not, I mean, is there another architect except solution? Maybe there should be a problem architect, which creates problems and the other solve the problems. But if there are just solution architects, why we need the solution term at all? You know it? Or why it happens with solution?
actually, I don't, but I can guess because I
Why?
saw this like several times that some position will just get renamed because of like
Marketing.
different reasons usually, but sometimes it's just because it sounds better.
Yeah, but the solution architect happened suddenly. It was like in the Corona time, everyone became a solution architect, and back then there was no such word. So it's something, there should be an article or something, solution architect. And so I never called myself solution architect, but maybe I should start, that I'm also a solution architect. Why not? I mean, this could help.
Oh,
Senior, how would you say it? Senior principal solution architect would be the best title ever, right?
yeah.
Very good.
Probably for you it
So I
will
have
be.
already ideas, for I would at least introduce myself on your Java user group meeting in Brno. Then I'm Adam Bean. I'm the senior principal senior or senior principal? Senior principal solution architect. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, and this
Actually, I was never like really. I never really cared about these positions because I think that if the idea is good, that it doesn't matter if it's coming from senior or from
yeah,
junior.
exactly.
It shouldn't matter. Actually, Red Hat is quite good at this because we have this so-called meritocracy where even junior should have the same voice as anyone else.
Very good.
But it doesn't always work like this, especially in engineering projects. I also run into these kind of problems that when I was junior, my ideas were not always heard. But not only in Red Hat, back then I was already doing some specification work, and that's more companies. So that's also where beard started growing, and I stopped cutting.
So you start cutting your beard. That's impossible. I mean, your beard is like already half a meter or something, right?
but this is where I start like intentionally trying to look older than I really was.
This is also fun because as I started with Java, everyone told me it's impossible. You're that young that you are architect, right? And now no one tells it anymore, but I still remember the days. And back then, everyone said, "No, we have 20 years of software experience, and you always fight it." And back then there was crazy architectures, like lots of stuff. I couldn't understand why they are doing this. I always ask why we need this stuff, why we don't delete it, right? And they say, "Okay, what do you know? You are just young," and this is always a problem at the beginning. And now I would say what changed. I don't even try. I look very young. This is true, but I don't even try to look older, right? So this is
like the benefits of having long hair and long beard is that you don't need to waste time taking care of yourself.
Yeah, or very short. This is
and you also look like that you code a lot.
Yes, this is true.
Time to do this.
I can. Yeah, I saw you. You are a hacker. So don't argue with Martin. He will be probably right. So this is my impression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the idea.
Very good. Okay, cool. So now we had a lot of discussion, half serious discussion about the roles, but really interesting to know. So that a senior is something which changes your tasks. This is what I didn't knew, and also interesting with the principal. So it's interesting. And when you can become senior principal?
Oh, that's also we have really like some like set of tasks that you need to fulfill to get into the position, but that it's not like that one person decides if you are promoted or not. These levels, you have like a whole committees of people you need to
convince.
They need to agree that you can be senior principal. So that's probably a few years.
Okay, now back to code. So you became interested in MicroProfile. Why?
Because I saw potential. Because back then I already saw that Java EE, it was still Java EE back then, was like really having few years between releases, and that was too slow. So when I found out about MicroProfile, well, Red Hat was one of the founding members.
Yes.
So I found about it pretty much when it was created, and like 3 releases per year, that was crazy back then.
Yeah. When you started with MicroProfile, from the beginning or later a bit?
I started later. I think I came closely before MicroProfile 2, when I was basically able to understand it enough that I was confident in contributing. But that was also because like it was not my day job back then. I started contributing to MicroProfile during my evenings and weekends as my like hobby, and eventually it became my job.
Okay. Because as MicroProfile came out, I was absolutely not interested. So I was in the first call with the the founding members of MicroProfile, and I said, okay, what you are doing? You're just stripping Java EE and the MicroProfile. The first thing was more like a marketing hack to move Oracle to release the new Java. This was actually just make Oracle angry. So the MicroProfile, because the term profile means something in Java EE. And MicroProfile was not an official profile, and call it micro. It was even more, how to call it, offensive,
Provoking.
right? Offensive and provoking. And I say, okay, this is fine, but I mean, if I just pick Whitefly, I have already everything you talk about. So for me, it doesn't make any sense, to even look at MicroProfile, because it is, and I know in the first version was limited. There was not even an asynchronous. So I was in longer calls with also with Red Hat, and I told them I don't see the point of a MicroProfile without the concurrency. I mean, and there was like just CDI, JAX-RS. JAX-RS was not there,
CDI,
right?
JAX-RS, JSON P and B.
Exactly, and no servlets and no concurrency. And I was like, okay, maybe we can skip servlets, but concurrency is a bigger deal, because I wanted to have a concurrent behavior. And then it changed because MicroProfile became useful for me. So, for instance, health, and I had a library. I call it Pink. I use it instead of health. So it is actually still very popular on GitHub, but it does nothing. It just returns plus or minus. So this was my health check back then, and I always like standards. Okay, before I introduce my own library, I would just pick health check. So the bigger deal was for me the config. I also wrote config by myself with Java. It was not a big deal, but you have to write it, and I hate custom stuff. So I remove all my stuff, replaced it with config. And of course, the biggest deal for me was metrics. I also did lots of metrics, even a Java E library, but metrics are very important, and MicroProfile metrics solve a lot of stuff, and fault tolerance as well. So, and then now my opinion is I don't even differentiate between MicroProfile and Java E. For me, it's just one thing. I don't care actually, because all the runtimes can do both. And there was some discussion, Java E or MicroProfile back and forth. I say I don't care. Usually, the same people work in both specs, and usually they like both. And most of the runtimes, like Whitefly, you can use seamlessly both at the same time. And I misuse actually health a lot for additional metadata, right? So even on AWS Lambda, what I'm doing is it ships with health checks, which doesn't make any sense. But if you call the health check, you get the versions and stuff like that. So it's a lightweight possibility to expose version information or whatever. So it's actually always a quick hack. So complete misuse of the spec, but it works well. So this is
just by the way, there is because I know that for Lambda you are using Quarkus. So in Quarkus you have also this Quarkus info extension now that is doing something like that will out of the box return like version and JDK, etc.
Quarkus info is cool, but I still try to be Quarkus independent, right? So this is my thing. And another story could interest you. So I was in Java user group Weiden. This is or Oberpfalz. This is here in Germany. So in Bavarian forest. So it is almost the direction to how to call it? Is this Czech Republic? Is it the correct?
Yeah, or Czechia now is.
Czechia is the Czech Republic is still the new term or the old term?
That's the old term, but it's still like in use.
No, but I don't like. I like to be, how to call it, not politically. Oh yeah. In this particular case, politically correct. So the politically correct would be Czechia. Not Czech Republic is no more, right? Czechia is the new term.
Both. Like Czechia, only since few years is now only politically correct.
Yeah, exactly. Then I meant Czechia, and because we have Czechia and Slovakia, and back then we only had Czech Republic, right? This is the story. And by the way, I'm very skilled with Slovakian and Czechian history because I know the Kaminsky encoding. You know it?
Mm-hmm.
This was like the way that to represent Czechian characters on printers. So I had already a podcast with some Czechian. I think it was Kaminsky encoding.
Yeah, I think that I know what you mean, but that was probably before my.
Were you born in Czechia or what? Or are you a fake Czechian person?
No, in Slovakia.
Slovakia, okay, but still, you should. Yeah, I was really interested in it because it was interesting development with the Slovakian or Czechian characters. So I had on podcast already discussion.
Yeah, I know that there were some issues with that, but that was like probably way before.
Yeah, but still interested. So they were also like high tech technology, Born in Czechia or Slovakia. This is what I forgot. But in Czech Republic back then in Czech Republic. Okay, and and the title of the Java user group was Java Haters Meetup. And there were lots of people who didn't like Java. So I they asked questions and I answered with code, showed some code and explained. And there was one professor and he said, okay, Quarkus is great, but there is so much documentation it is really hard to learn how I do this. And my answer was, I actually never read the tutorials from Quarkus, and they say how it's possible. It's like it's possible because I mostly focus on MicroProfile. So Quarkus implements MicroProfile, and this is the entire trick. And if you read, the MicroProfile spec, it is just, it is you don't have to read everything. I just showed, you can just go to the index HTML and then search, and you find the answer. And this was for them a surprise that you can actually with MicroProfile learn faster. And then if you really need, you can look up Quarkus functionality, but you don't have to. You can write, nice applications without having any idea about Quarkus. And what happened now, we are re-invited next summer to show them, because we convinced with them, okay, this is cool because now, and by the way, they would like to migrate from Python to Java. So it's a bigger deal, actually. And with this trick of MicroProfile, we actually, I said, okay, this is what I learned. And I learned fast. And so this is actually a cool idea, because just with Quarkus documentation, they were overwhelmed, because there are so many, every extension has an own tutorial, and there were lots of possibilities. Okay, my way to deal with it is just, to focus on MicroProfile and only use Quarkus if I really have to.
I kind of agree, but also disagree with this, because basically, yes, you are correct. MicroProfile is way easier to find the documentation, but also at least for MicroProfile extensions in Quarkus, every tutorial, or what we call guide in documentation, is 15 minutes long, when you will really create an application from scratch, and in 15 minutes you get the idea how to use the API.
Yeah, but if you consider, for instance, JAX-RS, Quarkus, so definitely, you're starting with uni, multi, which no one needs actually, in the standard projects, and you won't find this in JAX-RS, and then at the end you find, so there's always 3 possibilities to do this. And if you start with MicroProfile, this is very simple. They add path on the class, and here we go. In Quarkus, they show you, all these 3 possibilities. And for instance, this is why lots of projects are starting with uni and multi and mutiny. And this is, you could do this, but most of the projects don't need, directive programming, I would say. And with virtual threads in Java 21, even less so, right?
That's actually very good feedback, because definitely Smallrye mutiny, uni multi, is not required for
no, but this is promoted. So what I saw, lots of beginners are using the uni multi and JAX-RS, and then they're cursing. They go, why I have to use this strange API if there is if virtual threads are coming? And I say, you are right, but you don't have to do this. And they are surprised. And what you should do is, my opinion is, Quarkus is, use the JAX-RS reactive dependencies with old Java code, right? Start with it. And if you have applications with hundreds of thousands transactions per second, then we can talk about JAX-RS and reactive hibernate. But if most of the applications, enterprise applications, will never get to this area, right?
So I first want to finish that previous point that you made about the documentation and MicroProfile APIs, because JAX-RS, or the MicroProfile 1.0, I still consider more Jakarta than MicroProfile specs. MicroProfile specs for me start with config, and
yes,
from that.
With you.
Basically, the issue that I have with this, that MicroProfile is only the specified APIs that we agreed about, basically Red Hat, Oracle, Tommy Tribe, IBM, etc., Payara, Fujitsu, etc., which is really way smaller than what we provide as part of the Smallrye project, which is Quarkus and Whitefly implementations of MicroProfile APIs that we use. Because especially in Smallrye Health, Smallrye Health is my project, so I have way more freedom to experiment and to innovate. So we have a lot more APIs that are not just in MicroProfile Health, at least not yet.
Yes.
This is why I really encourage people to read the documentation in Quarkus, because you can do way more with Smallrye APIs that you can do only with MicroProfile.
But I get the same response from Oracle. They say, we encourage you to use the Oracle spec and don't read JDBC, right? You know what I mean? So this is we have to be careful. And it's just a question of order, right? I would start with the simple stuff, and it works, I'm fine. And then if something doesn't work, I could use from Smallrye. I could expose without any additional code, Kafka Health or whatever, with what Smallrye is doing for me. So I'm fine with it. later, right? So this is still my decision. But how to start with Quarkus, I'm still with it. To start with MicroProfile, exactly the same. How to start with database access? I would start with JDBC and not proprietary Postgres features, right? So this is the general advice, and we have to be careful because the entire point of MicroProfile in Jakarta E is to be runtime independent. And if we start, to be Quarkus dependent, then the next question is, okay, then I can use Spring Boot or whatever, and then it doesn't matter anymore. And if you use a MicroProfile, I have at least a chance in enterprise to switch between Quarkus, Helidon, and Micronaut, which is a big deal because the companies get support contracts with Red Hat. They are not interested just in the functionality. They would like to buy, the Mandrel, for instance, support contract is like this the lean GraalVM, right? So this is the leaner and not license constrained GraalVM. So in enterprise is a big deal. If this is a leisure projects, I go with Smallrye, full power, right? And by the way, I also say if you start with Quarkus, what I recommend is just use the Smallrye, whatever ends with Smallrye, because then at least it is somehow related to MicroProfile. So if there is an extension, always focus on Smallrye because at least the shared between OpenLiberty usually Whitefly and Quarkus, and sometimes even Payara and others. So it really depends because Smallrye is like the how to call it. Smallrye is like the shared projects where lots of the runtimes are picking Smallrye to implement MicroProfile. So it is always a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Like you don't even have an option for MicroProfile specs in Quarkus to pull only MicroProfile spec. You are pulling always Smallrye. So it's just the question if you are using some of that, like our own Smallrye APIs, or you are just using MicroProfile stuff.
I always use MicroProfile, and it works perfectly. And in rare cases, I would use Quarkus, right? So, but really, if I have to, because in the past, you are too young to know it, but we were burned several times. For instance, I use a lot of WebLogic, for instance, BA WebLogic dependencies. And what will happen then? They disappeared in the next version. And then we say, okay, well, what's the problem with it? I say, it was you used unsupported APIs. And you were burned so many times. But this is less likely with MicroProfile. You cannot just change MicroProfile because, Whitefly, OpenLiberty, and everyone has to change, right? So I would say MicroProfile provides me, the API, more stability.
And how often does it happen that you really migrate from Quarkus to Helidon or like between runtimes to OpenLiberty?
Well, in one project from Glassfish to Quarkus, for instance. And because we didn't use...
That's different for me.
Yeah, but the cool story...
I mean, really just MicroProfile migration.
But the cool story is, we had the same discussion with Glassfish. So in this project with Glassfish, we didn't use any Glassfish proprietary features. So I did lots of code reviews, and I say, okay, for instance, the Jersey framework. So I say we don't use Jersey, we just use JAX-RS. And the migrations were fairly easy. But if we were using the Glassfish proprietary features, like the Jersey dependencies, then the migration would be harder and sometimes even not possible. And how often it happens? It happens, for instance, Quarkus and Micronaut can happen because some projects would like to have a linear version of Spring Boot. And usually we migrate to Quarkus, but sometimes they like Micronaut more, right? And if I use a subset of MicroProfile, then the migration from Quarkus to Micronaut is easier because Micronaut supports less MicroProfile. So Quarkus has more support of MicroProfile and Micronaut not. So it is likely, and from my perspective as an enterprise consultant, right? Senior principal enterprise consultant, of course, it should be at least possible. Because otherwise, we have also negotiating with Red Hat the support fees or whatever, and we are stuck on Quarkus. We cannot tell we go to Helidon, right? So this is important to have the freedom, and there's no need to be depending on Smallrye. So if MicroProfile is fine, I think from the architectural and design perspective, it is a good idea to use the API first, and if the API is not sufficient, then to use the implementation, right?
Definitely. But exactly, this is the point that I'm always, like, very often I'm getting questions about something in MicroProfile, which is not in MicroProfile, but we have it in Smallrye.
Mm-hmm.
So very often I'm pointing people when they're asking that we already have this functionality, because there were like several people before you that run into the same problem. But we didn't push it into the specification, or the specification doesn't want it.
Then is it your job as if you would like to become principal senior, to push Smallrye to MicroProfile?
Well, this is not something that we are not doing. It's just the question is that when you have the full control over the project, as we have in Smallrye, it's way easier to try this innovation, to experiment. And in MicroProfile, even when MicroProfile started originally with this idea that they want to innovate, that there's not so much an issue to break stuff, it changed in few past years. MicroProfile also became way more concerned about backwards compatibility.
Yes.
It's not like that we can break every release as was originally proposed. Now we have an agreement that we can break only once per year in June release, which should be always like MicroProfile major release. So we need to be more careful, and we are more restricted in the specification phase, which totally makes sense. I definitely agree. But I still think that what we are doing on top of the specification has so much value that it's worth at least learning about, that these functionalities exist.
Yes. Again, it's question of order, right? If you are new, you come new to Quarkus, I would start with MicroProfile, it's easier. And then you have to know that Quarkus is maybe 80% larger than MicroProfile, right? So this is good to know, so that you will find extension for everything, right? So this is, I'm not telling that you should restrict yourself, but you have to have reasons, to leave MicroProfile and focus on Quarkus.
We're actually going to have like a full top to bottom MicroProfile tutorial done in the MicroProfile community soon. So I definitely agree that's a good starting point if somebody never seen or heard about MicroProfile.
And what I'm missing in Quarkus, and I actually wanted to implement that, but this was a long time ago, and what I do right now, I just copy the project. I have a project template, but I thought about to create a MicroProfile profile for Quarkus, right? So they have only one single extension.
No. I will send you after the podcast. We actually have like a grouping of all MicroProfile extensions that we used to use for certifications. When we
and this is what I missed, and I wanted to do this. I started even, but never released that because
this already exists.
Okay,
I can send you the link.
Yeah, this I will put to the show notes, and this is the missing point, because what I do right now, I add all the Smallrye dependencies. So this is, I get the MicroProfile, right? This is done almost like a whitefly. Plus, there is one which is not called, for me, like whitefly, right? From the code perspective. And only one which is not consistent is the MicroProfile REST client. It's not called Smallrye client. It is called REST client. This is so the name is not consistent. There's one dependency which is called differently. All others are more or less Smallrye, right?
That's because REST client implementation is actually in REST easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but exactly. But if I tell this to project, so the difference, you see this, you are implementing the server, and I'm using the server. No. For you, the inconsistencies are clear. For me, it is not, or for me, it is also understandable because I know about the REST easy. But a PHP developer who starts with Java, right? Mm-hmm. So for her or him, this is not obvious. And this is what I had to explain, right, several times. And just as feedback from me. So I'm actually fine with it. But if you work, longer time with something, everything is fine. That's the problem. You always have, what a fresh mind, if it starts with Quarkus, what happens then? This is the interesting part, right?
Yeah, this is exactly what I struggle with, because you are totally correct, because I'm also teaching now Quarkus and also Spring Boot at university as part of that enterprise Java course.
Are you also teaching Spring Boot?
Also, I have to. So
no problem, because if you are then the right person to ask, because we together were at conferences, right? I was at the JDD conference and InfoShare. We met, the first time in Katowice and Gdynia. And what I get the question is, can you do something similar with Spring Boot? And I have no idea. But what I know is that lots of people are coming from Spring Boot to me to make it work because Quarkus starts faster and is leaner. So I only know that lots of the projects are interested to use Quarkus because of cost reduction, startup time, or whatever. But I never created a Spring Boot project by myself. Now the question is, if you have identical or very similar, there's no identical, let's say a MicroProfile-like application on Spring Boot, and you do the same with Quarkus, no GraalVM, the same JVM, and you start both cold start. So Java minus jar Quarkus run and whatever Spring Boot run has. What is the difference in startup time?
Typically a few seconds.
A few seconds difference. So it means that Quarkus is orders of magnitude starts faster than Spring Boot.
Quarkus is doing a lot of stuff.
This is I know what Quarkus is doing. I'm just asking you, what's the time difference? Because
really a few seconds for typical like applications, like CRUD applications. A few seconds.
So Quarkus starts in 1 second, 2 seconds. This is what usually happens in MicroProfile. I know it because I do it all the time on Spring Boot.
Yeah, several. I don't want to say any number because
no, but let's say like then 3 seconds or 4 seconds. Even 1 second more is 1 second more.
4 second plus, I would say.
Okay. And is there any difference in memory, which is less interesting for me, but the memory consumption?
Definitely, because again, like at least for me, the first thing about Quarkus is the development mode, dev mode, because this is still the best thing for any engineer that sees Quarkus. And the second thing is that because Quarkus is doing a lot of these ahead of time compilations, processing, everything at build time.
Yeah.
So when you are compiling your application, you are not bringing even loading classes at runtime that Spring Boot has to load.
Yeah, exactly. This is
saving a lot of memory, a lot of processing at startup.
I was the Red Hat engineers came to me and said, "We have something interesting here. You should look at this." I said, "Okay, I'm not interested because I already knew Whitefly Swarm and Thorntail." And then I look at that and it said, "This is crazy because what Quarkus does, it deploys at build time, right? So the Whitefly and Glassfish and all the others, they are deploying at runtime, at startup time." And Quarkus deploys at build time and removes reflection, reads, configuration files, generates bytecode, so it's very fast. So this is what happens behind the scenes. But still, I was interested to know what the impact actually is because there were so many interests. And no one came to Quarkus because they like the API more. They came because they could save money in the clouds. So this is why, this was the use case. So it's why I'm asking you. So I have some... If someone asks me again at a conference, so my answer will be a couple of seconds is a difference, and this is significant.
Saving money in the cloud is what you will say to decision makers who are actually caring about the money. But like this is just one of the plus that Quarkus will bring because of this.
Yeah, but it's a big plus,
Definitely, it's a big plus. But like you saw my talk this year was actually just purely development mode and what kind of feature development mode brings.
Yeah, and I like your talk because you developing the entire time. No slides, even less slides that I have, which is terrible because, a few years ago I was the only without slides and now you have even less slides. But the next talk will be absolutely no slides. So I will try to minus slides, to have. But your great talk you showed is... you code the entire time. You use, the shortcuts to reload the tests. It was lots of insights, and it was a great talk. So I saw you in Gdynia in InfoShare. So and by the way, funny note is I knew you from Twitter because you had the icon with flames and fire or something, and I never knew who you are. And then you came to me, and I look at you up. It's like, yeah, this is interesting. Now I know the face behind, the icon. So this is a funny, online world because I only knew your tweets, but I had no idea who you actually are. So the first time we met was 2 months ago or something, or last month. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing right now? Are you spending time with JBoss or with Quarkus, or what are you doing actually?
Still in actually JBoss team. Now my main responsibility is JBoss EAP XP expansion pack, which is actually bringing MicroProfile to JBoss EAP because like pure EAP is only still Jakarta EE. If you want MicroProfile, you need to, or like full Wi-Fi, you need to go with EAP XP. That's just because of, a support policy for EAP is in years, and we don't want to support MicroProfile version, which will be breaking every year for several years. So the XP has shorter life cycles. But the most work that I actually code is now done on Quarkus, because I see that the future of Java lies probably in this dev mode, in this save
Yeah.
of resources,
Yeah.
and this is where I want to be.
Yeah, I actually use Quarkus all the time. So all my projects are Quarkus right now. So as feedback. So
Since like Quarkus came to my attention, and my first contribution was to Quarkus, which was not called Quarkus back then, but it was internal into version 0.12. And since then, I haven't wrote any Java application in different frameworks than Quarkus.
One thing which annoys me a bit, and not only me, lots of attendees also come to me, and projects is, I mean, project is clear, but I see more attendees than projects because you stick in a project a longer time, so you get the feedback once. If you have conferences, you get to know, and every talk feedback is the metrics, MicroProfile metrics. So I like the metrics a lot. We had already the discussion with MicroProfile. It's not a fault of Quarkus by any means. It's just MicroProfile. And what I like a lot is I put my annotations and I'm done. And what I also liked a lot were the scopes or the namespaces. So I had to know my business space and the vendor space, and I saw the metrics. And then they got the idea that the micrometer should be supported more. But the micrometer is everything is fine. But with the micrometer, you have the problem that in order to achieve the same, you had to do something which I was not interested at all. So and Quarkus seems to promote the micrometer a bit more than MicroProfile. And what I don't understand, what I understand is that the micrometer was requested by Datadog and all the other companies because they need the metrics. But from the application developer perspective, is MicroProfile metrics are way nicer than micrometer, right?
Well, this is like official stance from Red Hat because like MicroProfile metrics is a custom API that MicroProfile created, which was promoted as part of the MicroProfile. But especially in Quarkus, now also in Wi-Fi, we as a Red Hat as a company we want to follow the industry, the Java ecosystem, and Java ecosystem chose Micrometer as the metrics API. So we want to be
implementation.
Actually also the API, because like that library became basically the way to go for metrics. So this is why Quarkus promoted Micrometer, and we actually tried a lot to push Micrometer to replace MicroProfile metrics, or to MicroProfile metrics to basically adapt Micrometer APIs. But this was refused in MicroProfile.
Very good.
This is exactly where we hit the wall. And this is why Quarkus and Wi-Fi cannot be now certified as full MicroProfile specifications because of this single API. And it's unfortunate, but because MicroProfile also sees that they would like to get these two implementations back, we are actually going to work now for MicroProfile 7, which should be next year, to adapt OpenTelemetry metrics as a new specification, basically, under MicroProfile telemetry, which is also basically adapting Micrometer. So now we are going to work on basically a new metrics API that will adapt OpenTelemetry metrics.
What I don't understand is we don't have in most projects I have counted, right? And even having a counted a counter, basic counter to see how often a method is called, and then have basic statistic afterwards is a huge improvement. So there are lots of projects without any metrics outside. Right, so if you put counted or timed, is already fine. So what I would do in MicroProfile case, just define that. 3 annotations which are very simple, and 80% of developers will be happy. And then you can still use the micrometer, whatever they like, to have different, a complete different level of possibilities. This is maybe the idea is to standardize less and make it convenient, and have the option, to have the full power as micrometer. So nothing against micrometer, but you should not. If the projects have hard time to provide basic metrics, the solution is not necessarily, to add micrometer to have the full power, because then they will do nothing.
Exactly, but in micrometer you also have counted annotation or counter.
Yeah, you have. I actually recorded in a screencast. So in order to separate, for instance, what I always interested to separate, Quarkus metrics from my business metrics. And they have to do something with micrometer about that. And MicroProfile addressed that from the beginning. So I never looked, say, okay, this is my business application. So what I'm interested just in my own endpoints and not, all the internal whitefly stuff. And if micrometer comes out of the box, I have to define two registries and separate them by myself. And the question is why I have to do this. I mean, in MicroProfile, I completely ignored all these threads and memory and whatever. I don't care about that. I just focus on the business metrics. And this is harder with micrometer. So my only point was just define the subset, and behind the scenes, micrometer could create two registry, one for whatever you use micrometer for. I just interested to have my own view on my own metrics and ignore all the low level metrics. Because what happened in real world projects already, there are lots of war rooms with garbage collector activity and threat activity, and the business metrics were never considered because you got so many metrics out of the box. So that's just the feedback, just convenience. And this MicroProfile metrics, it somehow it was designed different to the others, because we also have REST Easy and we have Jersey, and I have my JAX-RS, and the industry standard is HTTP, and no one have a problem with it, right? And the MicroProfile would be similar. I have two annotations we added on it, and if you would like to use micrometer, we can suggest as extension micrometer. I have no problem with it, but yeah.
Well, MicroProfile metrics is, at least up to my knowledge, still an extension that is available.
Yeah, it is. I use it all the time.
So you can still use it, but for me, because I'm not metrics expert, we have different people for that.
Okay.
But from my experience with micrometer is that basically when you hardcode everything into the annotations, it's not possible to be changed. So basically, annotations are static.
Yes.
So with programmatic APIs, maybe you need to type a little bit more, or
yes,
maybe even not, because it's still one line. It's just not on top of the method; it's inside the method.
Mm-hmm.
But you have more freedom. You can basically play more with that.
But it's the same for REST Easy, right? Annotation static, but if I would use REST Easy programmatically, I can do more, right? This is always true.
Definitely. And this is why the micrometer also provides this at least counter and timed. Definitely these two annotations are there. But I saw in general, the use of metrics tends to move away from annotations back to programmatic APIs. But I definitely agree that this is the just matter of taste. Some people prefer annotations.
Lots of people prefer annotations. And for me, it would be define the basic metrics, at least in annotations or even in stereotype, because in my architectures, everything starts with an entry point called boundary, and all the boundary methods ship with one annotations, and you have to at least know what happens. And then you can refine with micrometer. This would be my approach, right? And I don't care a lot because I can write the 2 lines, but I get the feedback all the time. So people are angry with the metrics, right? So and yeah,
I definitely can understand that. And if you feel like it, just create an issue in.
I did it. I actually I tried to explain this in the MicroProfile spec, and I did it once, and maybe should do it again. Just as feedback from the field. I don't have a problem with it. I understand completely. And on in the cloud, it doesn't matter at all because we get the metrics from the cloud provider. I'm just this was just feedback from the field.
I personally think that if we are going to adapt OpenTelemetry metrics, and I haven't checked that yet, but if we are going to adapt that, then I think that MicroProfile metrics as a specification will be deprecated at least.
Yeah, it is interesting time what happens then, right?
So definitely we will see what OpenTelemetry metrics will be actually about, but this is valuable feedback, and definitely if you can basically provide this kind of feedback, I don't see any reason why Quarkus couldn't provide such wrapper or even annotation for different scopes. So your
exactly
will be
exactly this is what I'm saying. Yeah, you could use this is or default just annotations for business scope, and everything else use the micrometer. I'm happy, right? So this would be a minimal a minimal how to call it a minimal effort for maximum impact for basic business metrics, because I think the confusion is it's not the idea to replicate all the power of micrometer and have all the statistics annotations. Is more like to provide a very basic counters and maybe timed, very very basic time measuring annotations just for the business scope, and say okay, if you need more, just code it, right? This would be my approach, right?
I personally think that shouldn't be an issue. Actually, my colleague that is writing the book with me, he's responsible for Smallrye metrics. So definitely this.
I have to invite him to a podcast. So we have I can bash on him, right? So very good. And what's the name of your colleague? Is
Jan Martiška.
Okay, very good. So it was a great conversation with you. Where people can find you on the internet? Where is the burning icon? Twitter.
My burning icon you can find on basically every social media like X, Blue Sky, Mastodon,
Mhm.
LinkedIn, etc. Typically, I am xstefank, xstefank,
Mhm.
and
Why this?
because that was actually my idea at the university, because it was always X plus 7 letters of your surname. I'm
Ah,
Stefanko, so it's xstefank, and I liked it.
okay.
So I created GitHub as that, and it stuck with me.
Okay, xstefank. Okay, thank you. It was a nice conversation, and now I know a little bit more about the icon and you. So we met several times, and now we had a deeper conversation. And I will invite the MicroProfile people and talk once again, because I had already a talk with Aaron Schnabel about MicroProfile, why it happened, and MicroProfile metrics, and now we can talk a little bit more, because I think this is overlooked, feature, and it will solve. It will be more convenient, just a little bit syntactic sugar around micrometer. This would be my idea.
I don't see any reason why not, because like this is the intention of the API to
Exactly.
be used by people.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.